Miss Mahbobi, thank you for joining us and waiting so long. And you are based in London, and you're going to make a report about the Iran Tribunal, Aban Tribunal Code 2, which was happening in November this year. And after you finish your report, I will have some questions to you. Thank you.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for the organizer to kind of organize this meeting to echo the voice of people in Iran. In my first 5 minutes, I'll give you an introduction, and then perhaps in the question and answers. So just to remind you, I'm sure you all know that over 2 years ago, there was a massacre in Iran. Maybe after the 80s massacre, that was the really turning point in Iran, November 2019, where we had mass demonstration across Iran, basically. And according to report, up to 1,500 were killed. According to our report, it's basically more than 8,000 were arrested, many wounded. We don't even know the numbers. But all we know that these prisoners, these basically demonstrators, were taken to the prison. They were wounded. Instead of being treated, they were tortured. Many of them, when they were killed, their body weren't even given back to their family. Or if they were given back to the family, the regime would ask for money or would tell them that to be quiet, not to talk about their children, and they didn't have even the right to have funeral. So when you look back, it's quite an intense massacre that it was kind of unprecedented before. So what happened right now, because I want to also draw your attention to many of those people who were arrested are in prison at the moment. Some of the family have no idea where their loved one is. They don't have any basically communication with their family. And we're talking about very young people. We're not talking about even political activists. We're talking about young people as young as 13 years old who came on the street protesting against the inflation in petrol price. And we saw the same method of killing in the recent kind of protest of farmers in Isfahan. So basically, that two years ago that happened, and people remembered, of course, what happened to them, and every opportunity they tried to raise their voice, especially the brave families of these people who were arrested. So as we went along, the protest continued in different forms and shapes. But the International People Tribunal, known as Aban Tribunal, has created an opportunity for these people, some of them at least, and I'll explain more in the question and answer how it started and what happened. They created an opportunity for these people to be there and talk about what happened to them. Some of them bravely, with their real name, with their faces not covered, came and spoke about them. Just for your information, as soon as they gave evidence, the regime went to them, threatened them, and they wanted to arrest them. But what they said, the family said, even we knew that that's going to happen, but still we're going to talk about our children. It was kind of chilling account of what happened to a 17 years old, whose birthday was this year. And imagine that for a mom that staying with these bloody clothes in a box, and this is the only memory. And this is very familiar to us people in Iran. From the time that regime took power, we have learned that every single day we face suppression, torture, and imprisonment. And unfortunately, myself experienced it in a very young age, at the age of 16 in prison. And many of my friends who were 15 or even 16 were executed. And I know it's familiar to all of you. So basically with the Aban prison, that was provided, which it's really, really important. And I think it took us really a few steps ahead in the movement for justice. And it is continued, and I'll explain more. But what I wanted to say, like, I'm here in the capacity of spokesperson for the Campaign to Free Political Prisoners in Iran. And we get reports every day how prisoners are being treated and being tortured, being deprived of their very basic life, basically basic rights. And I want to use this opportunity. I know I want to talk about Alban too, just because you're from Germany. And I think I want to use this opportunity to draw your attention to one more point, and that is the brutality, the criminality of the Islamic regime. It's not limited to people who live in Iran only. It's actually, it goes beyond the border and arrests dual nationals and kidnap them. For example, two of them that their family asked me to actually say that here are, as you know, is Nahi Taghavi and also Jamshid Sharmah. These two are German Iranian who are in prison. Nahi Taghavi have been suffering from severe back pain after a few months being in solitary confinement. The family paid for the bail so she can have furlough for urgent treatment, but they're not releasing him, and they're actually desperate. I know you know her daughter. Another one who actually, like Jamshid Sharmah, he was kidnapped. So that's what I'm saying. The criminality of the regime go beyond the border. He was kidnapped in Dubai this year in July, and her daughter sent me a message and said, please echo our voice because we have no clue where our father is. He had a very limited access to legal representative and also talking to us. But for months, they don't even tell us which prison he is in. So I'm also here on behalf of these two families to ask you, especially that you are in Germany, to pressure the government in Germany, especially the new Chancellor, Mr. Scholz, that what do they do actually about this? They have new negotiation in Vienna about nuclear power, but two of their citizens are being tortured and really their life in danger. Do they talk about them in Vienna? What do they do about them? And I'm asking you to actually prioritize them. These are citizens who've been taken as hostages and using as a bargaining chips. So I just wanted to say that, and I'll be more than happy to provide more information. But as I know I don't have that much time, but I'm going to come back to the Alban Tribunal. The Alban Tribunal is actually not echoing the voice of those who were arrested in November 2019. It's a justice for many people, including the family of Nahi Taghavi and also Jamshid Sharmah. So I would be happy to answer your question. And also I'm here on behalf of course, we are the supporter of Alban Tribunal, but I'm here to ask you how you can help us, because Alban Tribunal might announce their verdict in May this year, but we need your help to do something with the finding of the Alban Tribunal. Thank you.
Thank you so much for reporting us all those points you mentioned. We were talking before about it, and I would say my question is, so by the way, we are also thinking if we should organize such a same Alban Tribunal or Iran Tribunal in Germany, but I would like to know, can the collected evidence be used in further trials, for example, at the International Criminal Court in Den Haag? Do you think it could help?
It will definitely help. The reason is, and I have an example for that. So as we know, Iran is not part of the ICC. Iran is not a member of that. And also there are some limitation in persecuting someone like Raisi because he is kind of the prime minister and they have immunity. But at the same time, the other way around it is we ask, and the organizer of the Alban Tribunal asked that for the member of the parliament, for the politician, for the government, especially those who are member of the UN Human Rights Council, to forward the finding of this Alban Tribunal to the UN Human Rights Council and pressure, for example, the governments, including Germany, who is part of the UN Security Council, UN, to pressure them to put that on the agenda. It can be used, especially, if I may mention, in the beginning of the Aban Tribunal on the first day, they named 133 perpetrators. That include Khamenei, that include Raisi, and also Rouhani, and many more. So it's not just about Raisi. Any of these people, if they step outside of Iran, like Hamid Nouri, if they are in a country that they follow universal jurisdiction, so therefore they can be arrested. Like in Hamid Nouri's case, we know that well, that they used the finding of the Iran tribunal that happened in 2012. If we didn't have that evidence, perhaps we wouldn't have enough kind of evidence for Hamid Nouri. So there definitely it is, because the finding, this is kind of, the finding is because of the work of 6 very well-known judges, international judges, and it has legal process. It might not have legal binding now, but it's definitely very, very important to be used in the international court. And right now, would you like me to mention how many other people came forward?
Yes.
So basically, if I mention, the organizers are Iran Human Rights, Together Against Death Penalty, and also Justice for Iran. And we, as Campaign to Free Political Prisoners, we supported them from very beginning to publicize it and to reach to actually witnesses in Iran. They started only with 20 kind of witnesses in around August 2020. But when they started and calling on people in November 2020, 300 people from Iran, they answered the call and they said, we will give testimony. This is really important. They're not sitting in these countries, they're inside Iran, and it's too dangerous for them. So when they started that and the process started, there were more people coming forward, but only in 5 days, 33 people could present their cases and some expert witnesses. 2 days after, when our tribunal was on the second day, tens of people contacted the organizer and they said, we want to testify as well. And right now that I'm speaking with you, the panel of counsel, they are going through different interviews. And that's why there might be most likely there might be a private hearing soon, so they have more witnesses and the verdict might be announced in May. So it's quite an intense one, which gave lots of hope. And one of the unique thing about this hearing, 3 people from security forces came, covered their face and spoke about it. I've been working with political prisoners for many, many years, but the thing they were saying about what happened in November 2019, it was really chilling. It was really, really difficult to hear, and especially with the families.
Thank you very much. I mean, it is not only symbolic. I'm happy about it, really, because yes. I thought before you made this report, maybe is only symbolic, this court, Iran International Court or Tribunal. I'm happy about it. And do you believe that these convictions can actually be carried out in some way?
Yes, definitely. Because I'm glad you mentioned it's not symbolic. This is what people use because it's called International People Tribunal and is not from our government, is not symbolic. It's real people who've been tortured. It's real people who killed real people. So therefore, these are really mass evidence. So therefore, I guess, according to the judges, of course, they have to legally, they have to announce their verdict. And it's supposed to be in The Hague, by the way. They announced that in The Hague. But they basically believe that the Islamic Republic of Iran have committed serious crime against humanity, including torture, execution, kidnapping, and mass arrest. So therefore, it is a verdict there. And as I said, I want to emphasize that the person who was in charge, was the head of the judiciary at the same time, at the time, it was Ebrahim Raisi. Yes. And this is really important because if Ebrahim Raisi issued, if not, definitely issued all these kind of prison sentences and torture and all that. This is against him. And that's why it's not symbolic, it's actually evidence, and it's been processed, and it's going to be much stronger in the May, because imagine hundreds of people giving evidence. And we're hoping that our aim is to take this and more call to the UN Human Rights Council. It's help us to be much closer. Just to give you an example, David Alton is the member of the House of Lords in the UK. He issued a statement to the UK government that he asked the finding of the Auburn Tribunal to be sent to the UN Human Rights Council. International Bar Association Human Rights Institute called on the UN to take this and basically create a commission to investigate the crime. So politicians in Germany can do exactly the same. Member of the parliament can do the same. Imagine if hundreds of calls from politicians, from members of the government, parliament, from the government goes to the UN Human Rights Council. They are member of the council. So they put pressure, and hopefully we're hoping this can be referred to the UN Security Council, even though the composition of that, because of China and Russia, that makes it more complicated. Sure. But we know that the pressure from people always work.
Absolutely. I admit and confirm. Is there any other question to Ms. Mahbobi? Ulrike? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, we have two questions from the audience, but not particularly to the Auburn Tribunal or to Ms. Mahbobi. Shall I read them? Or do we have another question for Ms. Mahbobi?
Is there other question? What do you think when we organize the same Iran tribunal in Germany, Ms. Mahbobi?
I think that's really important, because Germany is one of those countries who falls under universal jurisdiction. So therefore, I mean, I know Mina Ahadi knows that I was in Germany when one of the Iranian officials came for basically Shahrudi came there. And I think especially people who doesn't have immunity like Hamid Nouri, it can be arrested. But I think the important is if there is a group, for example, in Germany, who can start collecting evidence. Like if I give you an example, recently there was a conference on conference in Scotland, as you know, on the climate change. And one of the ex-member of the parliament basically collected information from 6 survivors of 80s, and they went to the police and they basically complained against Raisi. Well, Raisi first said that he will attend the conference, but then he said he will not. And our suspicion is that because of that complaint. So the basic thing we can do, collecting information from the survivors, and I'll be more than happy to help you with that, and collecting that, and also going to the police and actually putting a formal complaint. If we have that place in every country, then the regime knows he is dealing with everyone in the world. At the end of the day, we say crime against humanity. That means crimes against all. Yes. It doesn't matter each of us or where we are from. That means that we all have responsibility.